Sup, nerds, I'm Wes.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
We're three people talking about a two-player game. One of us didn't get to play it. Guess who? It's Aaron.
So we did already give our thoughts on Codenames and Codenames Pictures, so check those videos out. We're mostly going to be talking about like our thoughts on just this iteration of the game and how it differs from those two.
The biggest difference in Codenames Duet is it is a exclusively two-player game.
Well, it says say two or more, but I think it's like two,
You
4,
could team
6.
up and have two people. Like,
It's exclusively an even number of
It
people.
should be a two-player game.
Yeah. Or it just makes it a fully cooperative game, I guess.
Yeah, it's like in all co-op games. It says you could play with one player because you could solo a game and play multiple players.
But you could solo this one.
I'm just saying it's like that, or they
They're
go
saying
up.
like the number is somewhat malleable. Like it should be 2, but in theory
You
can
could
do
play
more.
Pandemic with 30 players if you just
And
all
everybody's
like everyone
just-
shared.
yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
bad. Don't do that.
So you still have this card, which has the location of all the agents and the assassins, and you're trying to, still give clues to find them, but it's double-sided now. Like, that's the craziest thing. Like, so you're going to sit down at the table and look at one side, and somebody's going to sit on the other side and look at it, and the clues, you're trying to get everybody to guess the green ones, and they're trying to get you to guess the green ones, and they kind of overlap, which is what makes this a hard game.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because like some of my assassins are your agents, and so like I'm giving you clues, and I'm giving you clues to guess one that's an assassin on your side, and I want you to guess it, and you're like, do I guess it? Because that's an assassin over here. And there's one of your assassins is one of my agents, and then 2 of our assassins overlap, and it's really interesting. There's some mind games that you can play with it.
And I do want to comment on that because that's the thing about this game that I like the most, but also the biggest flaw that the game has, or the biggest issue when explaining this game to somebody. Because if you're sitting down and they've already played Codenames, which I would kind of recommend, I would recommend this being played.
Yeah.
Don't introduce somebody to Codenames in this manner, but when you're trying to explain to them, because you said, oh, some of your assassins are my agents that you need to get. No, it's not some of. It's specifically when you're looking at those 3 assassins that you have. One of those is an assassin that you can't say. One of those is a word you have to say. And one of those is neutral. Like, you know that. But it messes with their mind, especially because the words you use are like, oh, one of my assassins. Well, what do you mean my assassins? The assassin that I have on my card, something that will be an assassin if I were to be the one to say it. Do you see how that can end up being like a little bit clunky to somebody who's sitting down for the first time?
And I think that the solution to that is, especially if you are teaching someone this game first, is just don't give them like the information you could have. Just say, hey, when you're guessing, cover your card up and just don't think about it, don't look at it, just pretend like it's a different game when it's your turn and my turn guessing. Because it could bog them up, and you could get bogged down by like, oh, I know this is one, and eventually one of these 2, and it could almost throw you off because you're so focused on those. So, if you're someone who needs that extra information and like you're really intense about this, especially because there is a campaign mode you can play with this, like if you're really into that, then yeah, you want every single scrap of information you can get. If not, just ignore the card when you're guessing, and it really won't factor in at all.
I agree with you that it does have to be the first time you do that, because knowing that information, to me, that's such a good, that's such a juicy piece to this game. Like that's why I said it's like one of the things that I love about it the most. Like staring at those assassins, I'm like, if I say one of these 3 words, I have a 33% chance that we lose, and I have a 33% chance that I get a word that I need to say. Like that is one of my favorite parts about this specific version of Codenames.
Yeah, there's a lot more inner conflict when you're looking at a word that you're like, that's definitely the clue that he's giving me, but it's an assassin. Should I guess? I have to guess eventually one of them, so let me just do it. I'm pretty sure about this. And though I do like that, going back to the words after playing with pictures, it's not the same. So I like to play Codenames Duet with picture cards. Like, just put the picture cards in there and play Duet.
Which is something you can absolutely do.
Yeah, they actually recommend, like, doing that, or to, like, mix them where you have words and pictures, like every other one, which is insane.
We just have, like, objects, like, just put a banana in there.
And I do think that talking about, like, the mind games, like, things going on, the most confusing thought for me is that when you guess a civilian, so you have like these check marks or the civilians, if you guess wrong and it's nothing, it's like a neutral civilian, you put that on there, and if you point it towards the person who guessed that civilian, because even though it already has a civilian on it, it could still be someone else's agent. And so you can't just, oh, that has a civilian, I'm going to ignore it. You have to like put it off to the side and keep it in the back of your mind. Okay, he gets that one and is wrong. It could still be that for me. And I think that's, especially with a newer player playing this, that could be like a huge detriment in this version.
Outside of that, though, once you get past that initial clunkiness of like we're limited in rounds too. Like outside of that, though, really, this is probably my favorite version, just because there's so much more. You mind meld with that person so much more, and there's a lot less downtime. There is still going to be downtime, but it's not, as you said in the regular version, where there's two people's downtime that you have to sit through. Like, and even during your downtime, the board isn't going to change. Like, sure, it's going to change, but even that change helps you out. So you're like, ooh, great. Like, you really, really meld with a person. And actually, you mentioned the campaign. There is some kind of campaign thing in there, but I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, I mean, campaigns are a big selling point for games in general right now. It's a little bit of a fad-ish, I guess. I didn't really see that being a thing that this game needed. If you want to try it out, go for it.
And all the campaign really does is it makes it so you have like different numbers of like clues you can give. Like some games you get extra clues, and some games you get less, like not clues but rounds. So it basically it changes the number of rounds you have to finish the game in. So like you could just not do it and just say, hey, we're really good, let's take one of these away. Hey, we're doing good, and just keep going down and see how low you can get it. Or if you want it to be structured, there's a little map you can travel around.
I think I'd have to agree with you, Tom. This is actually my favorite version of Codenames. I know I said that in the last one, but that was before this one. So this is my new favorite. Like, maybe I'm just cold to the new or something, but I like this one more. It's, you can definitely just sit down and play it 2 players, which happens to be a lot of the times, like, it's just me and my girlfriend. Like, I can't have other people play the game with me, so it's just the 2 of us. This is a game that we can actually play.
New is always better.
New is always
Exactly.
better. I'm going to go against the grain a little bit here and say this is my favorite iteration of Codenames.
What?
We
You
all
would say
agree! Yeah!
And I do think that I gave kind of a poor review of vanilla Codenames, and I think that's because I reviewed it after this game came out. What?
Vanilla Ice Codenames. Like, you know what I mean?
I always thought Codenames was just an okay game, and then once I played this version of it, I was like, oh no, that is no longer an okay game. I don't ever want to play that one again. I think this just fixes so much. Like Tom said, there's much less downtime. There's always thinking going on. You're like, there's no one that you're playing against. So like, I feel like when you're playing against someone and your teammate messes up, you're like frustrated and angry, and now they shot ahead and it's your fault and I'm mad at you. And this one, because we're working as a team, like, yeah, I can get a little frustrated, but we're working together. And if like I guess all of mine before you guess all of yours, then I just stop guessing, and then the rest of the rounds are for you to guess. And I think that just helps the game flow a little better. It's easier to play with somebody you haven't played. Actually, the first time I played this was a prototype at CMON Expo, and I just sat down with someone I never knew, and we cranked through it, and it was a lot of fun. So I think that this does it so well. Like Aaron said, if you like pictures, you can throw them in here. And they actually encourage you, if you want to get the Disney or the Marvel or any of the new ones coming out.
What are you talking about those for?
We'll get there. They didn't have to include clue cards in this. Like, they did because why not? Like, there's an almost infinite number of awards they could add here. They really just, the biggest thing is these double-sided cards and then these little tokens, which you could fake. But they added a new way to play all of the Codenames games that you like.
An infinite number of words?
I said almost infinite number of words.
That's still wrong. Well, I, for one, am super glad that we all agreed this time. Look at us, we're like a little family. We're like, oh man.
So if any of what we're talking about really just like struck a chord in your heart, you should definitely click the link in the description box down below. Get yourself a copy of Codenames Duet.
Hey, and while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never be bored. You have the card that has
The clues and the...
Yep. So you still have the clue card that has, the locations of each of the
Assassins.
So you still have the clue card, which has the locations of the
agents, the assassins.
Thank you. Anyways, you still have your clue card, which has the location of all of the spies and the
Agents, the assassins.
still
Suicide shot.
no.